All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. My name is Simran, and I'm with Canopy. Canopy is a co-working space that's based in San Francisco, and I'll put the link to our website in the chat box down below. Today we have Canopy member Karine Sarkissian. Thank you for being here. And Chef Tara, who are both Lebanese, and they're going to be discussing the really sad and recent events that have happened in Lebanon, while also sharing some recipes. All right, Karine, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Thank you, Simran, and thank you to Canopy for supporting us in such an important cause. I thought we'd give a little bit of information first about who we are. This event is in a collaboration both with Canopy and with Chef Tara Khattar, who is joining us and who's going to be leading the cooking class today. Just quick background on myself to put everything in perspective. I'm Lebanese Armenian, living in San Francisco, and I'm a designer and an investor, and I've been working out of Canopy for the last 2.5 years or so, and have done a couple of events with them, and I'm really excited to bring this one forward today. And I'll talk a little bit about why we're doing this, but I'll first throw it to Tara to introduce herself to the rest of you.
Hi guys, my name is Tara, and I'm also Lebanese. I'm really happy to be here with all of you today and to share, a couple of recipes from my home country, from our home country, because as you know, we've had like the biggest disaster that has ever hit Lebanon happen about 2 weeks ago, and we're trying to do, everything to help the people back home. And I feel like when you're forced to move away from your country, one of the only things that you have left is the food that you can transport, that is a universal way of taking you back to your country. And so that's why Karine had proposed that we do something with food. Sorry, you're listening to my dog. He gets like jealous when I talk to other people. I have a very possessive dog.
Some quick background. I think a lot of you know what happened, but on August 4th, there was basically a huge explosion that destroyed the majority of our city of Beirut. It consisted of about 2,750 ammonium nitrates that were stored unsafely in Beirut's port, and that basically destroyed part of our city. And we have about 220 plus deaths, about 7,000 more injured, and 300,000 displaced or homeless, some of those including our families as well, the two of us. So really the premise of this event is, like Tara said, to really share our culture with you. And we're going to talk about why we chose these specific dishes. But in the meantime, if you can consider always, first of all, thank you for your donations, but if you can consider always donating, that's any contribution, any dollar really counts. And I think we'll dive in now and talk a little bit about what we're going to make today. And guys, if you have any questions, please send them in the chat, and I'll be kind of moderating the conversation while Tara leads the cooking.
So, hey guys, we're gonna start with the atayef, and during this cooking class, we're really gonna go like back and forth so that we make sure to finish everything in time. And I'm gonna start by the atayef though. So for the people who don't know what atayef is, they're Lebanese pancakes. And they're a recipe I really like because you can make them, vegan in a really easy way by just omitting the milk powder. And if I'm going too fast, you can just tell me to slow down. And if you have any questions, just ask Karine and she will, ask them. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with our active dry yeast. And I'm going to put it into a small bowl. So I'm putting 2 teaspoons. I'm adding the tablespoon of milk powder, the tablespoon of sugar, and I'm gonna add to that 1 3/4 cups of warm water. So you want it to be like approximately a bit warmer than your fingers. If you stick your finger inside, a bit warmer than what like regular temperature would be. So I'll leave that for a couple of minutes aside, and I'm going to take my flour. So I have 2 cups of flour here. And I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1 tablespoon of baking powder. So we have 2 types of yeast in this recipe. Now, as I said before, it's very easy to make it vegan. Just remove the milk powder and it's fine. If you can't find milk powder, you can replace the milk powder but by a bit of liquid milk, and it works. So I'm gonna add approximately 1 tablespoon of olive oil. If you don't like olive oil, you can add any type of oil, so canola oil or grapeseed oil to this recipe. So I'm gonna whisk.
Tara, they're asking, you can use fresh milk instead of powdered milk, right?
Yes, and so I would add like 2 tablespoons of fresh milk. And so I'm mixing my yeast, milk, and sugar mixture so that everything like gets well blended and dissolved. And now I'm gonna add my liquid ingredients into my dry ingredients. Okay.
She's making the atayef dough. And
so for the dough, I'm now gonna whisk it all together. And there's no wrong way of doing this. You know, when you're like making pancakes, they tell you not to overmix. Here, you don't care. You want a dough that's pretty well mixed and fine. I'm just gonna mix it. Really well. And the thing with atayef dough is that depending on the yeast and like how quickly the yeast will act, you might get a dough that's a bit thicker than you would want it. So what we want to work towards is a sort of crepe dough. So something that's very thin, but that will still hold together. So you see here, my dough is too thick. You can see. So I'm going to add a bit more water to make sure that I get the right consistency.
And Tara, can you talk a little bit about what the atayef is? Like a little bit, tell us a little bit more about it. You know, why is it so special as and like such a versatile dessert?
Yes, so atayef is actually a dessert that we eat a lot for like the Saint Barbe in Lebanon, which is like a Lebanese version of Halloween. This is how we could describe it. And you can find them in different pastry stores, like all over the whole year, but they're mostly eaten at that certain day of the year, and they're usually filled either with ashta, which is a sort of like Lebanese ricotta, or with nuts. And you find like more modern versions where they fill them and then they fry them, but we're doing like the traditional version here. So you see, I finished my my dough, and you see this is the consistency that I'm looking for.
Okay.
See?
Okay,
It's
so like
exactly like a crepe. It's like a crepe recipe.
Yeah.
It's like a crepe dough. So I'm going to leave it aside, and it's normal that it'll get thicker. You can thin it out again, and I'll show you what to look for when you're cooking it. So while we let it rest for about 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to get working on the cheese and on the syrup. So for the syrup, I have a cup of sugar in a pan. I'm going to add to it half a cup of water, and I'm using the same measuring cup that I used for the sugar, and you can use any cup you have at home. It doesn't necessarily need to be, a liquid measuring cup like this. I'm gonna add it to my sugar, and I'm going to put just a few drops of lemon juice. And the reason why we put the lemon juice is so that the sugar and the water mixture don't become a caramel, We don't want it to become thicker than a simple syrup. So I'm just gonna mix all my ingredients together and allow the sugar to dissolve on a very low heat.
You have a question, someone asking if you could still use lime, if you could also use lime.
Yes, you could use lime. You could use lime or lemon. The only thing that the lemon is doing here is not giving a flavor. It's just so that the sugar and water don't become a caramel. Okay. So now I'm gonna move to the cheese part.
And for anyone that's asking, I reposted the recipe in the chat, so you should have all the measurements and all the details.
So for my cheese, I'm going to mix about half a cup of mascarpone cheese with approximately a cup of ricotta.
And now you're making the atayef filling. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that's the filling. And the reason I'm mixing them both together is because I find that the ashta is a bit more creamy than the ricotta that you find here. So I want to give it like a bit more creaminess for it to be more decadent than just like a regular ricotta. And I'm mixing them with a fork. You can see how I'm like, it's as if I'm mashing a banana. So I just want to make sure that everything, you know, gets well incorporated. Now, if you wanted, you could add a bit of orange blossom and rose water syrup if you want to make it like even more fragrant. But you can leave it just as is. I don't like to add sugar because we have the syrup that's going to be very sweet, but some people also could add like a tablespoon of sugar if you prefer.
So pause a little bit, Tara, this like just to ground our non-Lebanese viewers, it's a kind of a 3-part pancake, right? You have the pancake, that's
yes.
When you talk about the dough, you have the filling, that's the ashta or parent cheese that you have in front of you. And then the third part is the sugar syrup, which is the sweetener and binder of everything. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So the pancake is what we're going to cook right now. We have our cheese filling. So the cheese filling, you can see it here, it's a bit liquid. I like it to be a bit more firm. So what I usually do is that I take some kitchen paper and I just put it in a sieve or colander. You know, you just cover it. And I pour my cheese mixture into it. And I leave it for about an hour or two just to remove the excess liquid and to like have a stronger flavor and have it a bit more creamy. So just like this. Like this. And I'll just keep it in the fridge for, you could put it, I mean, sometimes I put it just 20 minutes. It's normal that you're not going to see a lot of liquid go down, but the paper towel, you can see that it already started absorbing the liquid. So it'll absorb a bit of the excess liquid.
And what's happening in the back? Sorry,
So in the back, we have our sugar syrup. So it's really, really fast. You can see as soon as it boils, like this, I'm going to turn it off. Mine isn't, usually it's like a clear color. I only have organic sugar, which is a bit darker colored. And so I'm going to add to it, when you remove it from the fire, the first thing you want to do is add your orange blossom and rose water. So I'm going to add a bit of orange blossom and a bit of rose water. And if you're doing it with me, you'll smell, it smells so good. It smells exactly like home, you know, like.
These are two quintessential flavors and smells that we recognize in any Lebanese house, besides our spices, I would say.
Yeah, and your syrup is ready, and it needs to cool, and it'll like get thicker as it cools. So I'm just going to leave it aside and let the, you know, the rose water and orange blossom really like infuse the syrup. During that time, I'm going to make a few pancakes. So I have my dough here. And it's still perfect. So I'm going to put a bit of oil on a hot surface. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to advance a bit.
And what temperature are you keeping the surface? Like, are you keeping it on medium, on low heat? Like,
so you want to have like a medium heat here. I have it preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you have like a panini press, this is what I'm using. They always have like a flat surface, which I use to make crepes and stuff. It's very practical. It holds the heat really well. Like, and if not, you can use a non-stick pan like this, which is perfect. Now I have a little trick that I use. I put a olive oil. Again, you can use grapeseed or canola oil. I like using olive oil. I think it's healthier, and I really like the flavor of olive oil in desserts. I think it adds, you know, a bit more aromatic flavor to the dessert.
And I guess you use it a lot in also like Mediterranean, Middle Eastern cuisine.
Yeah, I mean, my grandma fries in olive oil. It's like we only have olive oil at home, so olive oil is big in our house. And what I'm doing is that I put a bit of olive oil and I wiped it with a piece of kitchen towel just to make sure there isn't that much oil on my surface. And then I'm just using a tablespoon. And this is a trick that I use. It's great to have like very round, very, uniform pancakes if you want them all to be the same size. And I'm just gonna put 1 tablespoon of the dough. And atayef, I love cooking atayef because you only cook them on one side. So you don't need to flip and waste your time. They cook on one side and then you take them off the heat.
Like a fast-paced pancake. I love it.
And it doesn't, it expands, but not that much. So you can actually put a lot. Can you see my pancakes?
Yes, we can. They're bubbling just like actual pancakes do, as far as we can see from here.
Yeah, and they're gonna start to bubble on top. And actually when they're cooked, I have a few that I've cooked. They're gonna take a couple of minutes to cook. When they're cooked, you'll see that the holes stay on one side. So that's the side that has not, that you haven't cooked it on. And then the other side is lightly golden brown. Okay. And it's normal that when you remove the pancakes, they're going to be a bit hard. And then they'll get very, very soft, a minute after. So they'll get super, flexible, very easy. And you can even like pinch them and they'll stick together. So to close them.
And Tara, they're not sweet, right? They're like pretty neutral in flavor.
They are neutral in flavor. So I actually serve them with like brisket and avocado and like a chipotle mayo. You could do anything you want with it. I like to think of it as kind of like a cross between like a
blini.
I would say a pancake and a bao bun, kind of. Nice. Because they're softer than a pancake, and they're, you could do 2, one next to the other, and then stick them, like use them as a sandwich and use them as a bao bun.
Oh, nice.
And they're so much easier to make than bao buns. So here they're almost ready. I'm gonna wait a couple of minutes still.
It's like you're teaching us like 5 recipes in one.
That's always what I do. I can't stick to one. No, but they're almost ready. You can see like how they're almost dry.
Yep.
They're still not there, but almost. And you can see how they're starting to turn like golden brown.
Oh yeah.
On the other side. So super easy to make. And what I love about it is that, it doesn't cost anything to make them. You make a lot in like 15 minutes. And it's not a recipe that you can like burn very easily. They cook really slow. It's a very easy recipe. So when you put your finger on top of it and, some dough comes out, they're still not cooked. You have to wait a few minutes.
Okay.
So while I wait for that, I am going to make my labneh. So labneh is something that is basically like a Lebanese strained yogurt that we eat with basically all meals, but it's very, it's a very special dish that we eat in the morning that accompanies the manouche that we're going to make in a bit. When I came to the US, I couldn't find labneh anywhere. And if I could, it was super expensive. And so I wanted to make it at home. And I wanted a really quick version. And this one is so easy. So you only need a bowl, a sieve or a colander. And I just bought the regular Whole Foods organic plain yogurt. And so it's a very, very, very quick recipe. Again, you line your sieve with some kitchen towel. You could also use, a cheesecloth. What I like about this is that there's no cleanup. I just throw it away later, so it's much easier. And then I'm gonna take some salt, and I'm gonna add approximately a tablespoon of salt to the tub of yogurt that I have. You mix it into your yogurt.
How much salt was that?
1 tablespoon of salt, and you have to keep in mind that when the labneh sets, you're essentially removing liquid from it, so it's gonna get saltier. I like to add a bit of salt at first because I feel like it gives it a better flavor. So I'm gonna remove my atayef. You can see that they're hard. Like you would think that if you fold it now, it would break. I'm gonna keep it aside for like a minute and I'll show you how like soft it will get. So I'm taking off my pancakes. See, they're crispy. And in a minute, they'll become super soft. See? And you can make bigger ones by putting 2 tablespoons of dough. I'll show you both options. I'm just gonna turn that off. So back to the labneh. So we put 1 tablespoon. We mix it really well, you know, with a big spoon. And then I'm gonna pour it into my sieve. And then you wanna give it between 6 hours to a day. So I usually like to make it overnight, or if you can make it in the morning, it'll be ready then, you know, in the evening, or if you wanna make it at night the next day. So that's it, that's your labneh.
Where? Keep it in the fridge. Do you store it in the fridge?
Yes, so I'm gonna keep it in the fridge.
Okay.
And I have some that I made yesterday that I'll show you. It's right here. I'll show you what it looks like. So this goes into the fridge for approximately 6 to 24 hours. Okay?
A yummy treat for the morning.
Are you still following? Am I going too fast?
How's everyone doing? Let's maybe pause for a second. We're actually pretty good on time. And Tara, like maybe we'll pause a little bit and actually talk about why we chose specifically the manaish and the labneh to do today. Because I think they're both Lebanese staples, and Tara has done a lot of research about all these Lebanese dishes. So I think it'd be great to have you talk about them a little bit.
Yes, so I think we chose that because the manouche is, you know, the dish that no matter where you grow up in Lebanon, if you're rich, if you're poor, if you're going to school, if you're going to work, it's a breakfast that everybody has, so it's very universal. And I think it's the first dish that everybody goes home and runs to the bakery to get. You know, it's like when you go to Paris, you go and get a chocolate croissant directly as soon as you arrive. And this is, I think, the way Lebanese people, you know, it's what smells like home. It's what reminds you of home, of when you were in school or when you were, you know, going to university in the first couple of years. And I don't know, for me, this is always what it represented. I don't know what you think, Karine.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's, and we have like, I guess, different versions of it back home. Like there's even like the thinner, like one that's called the sage. There's the thicker one, and it's like you can have it in the mountain, you can have it, and like the fresher the better. It's like any friend that I've hosted at my house has had it because I've usually made it. So it's very fitting. Like it's extremely Lebanese and quintessential, as you said it.
I think it embodies, you know, Lebanese hospitality at its best, because it's what you will get offered for free most of the time. I mean, every time I go to Lebanon until now, every time I go to, like, you know, my neighborhood bakery, they give me that first manouche for free, and they're like, oh, welcome back home, you know. And so it has, you know, you come in, you smell, you know, the fresh bread that's baking with, you know, the thyme and the olive oil and everything, and it's just, it instantly makes you feel at home. And I think it's something that we miss a lot, being away. And I found this way, you know, to cook it in basically just 3 minutes, which is great. It tastes really good. It's very close to what you get back home. And what I love about it is that you can just, I always have naan in the freezer. They're ingredients that you usually have at home. So it takes you really in about 5 minutes, you can decide to have it and have it ready and, you know, ready to go on the table. If you know, cook some eggs on the side, it's a full brunch and you're, you know, you're all set for the day. So it's something that I really, really love. And I'm going to start now by making, you know, the cheese filling, which in Lebanon, they use different types of cheeses depending on which region you're in and which bakery you go to. The za'atar manouche, which is the thyme one, tastes the same, I think, pretty much everywhere, but the cheese is very different from place to place. And for the cheese here, the way I got to, you know, make it as close as the one I get back home is that I took approximately a cup of feta and I just put it in a bowl, and I'm going to break it up with a fork. So
I just want to pause for a second, Tara. Just like I want to emphasize whoever is following, there are 2 types of manaish. There's the za'atar, which is the thyme one, and the cheese one that Tara is currently showing us how to do. And I was thinking we could also talk a little bit about what za'atar is, but first maybe we'll focus on what you're doing with the cheese one. So, and someone is asking, which type of feta are you using?
So I just bought the regular, you know, Whole Foods feta that you find in the store, the sheep's milk feta. But you can you can pick whatever you prefer. I like to choose, you know, the one that you get in water because it breaks up a lot easier. You can see it. And basically what I did is that I kind of, you know, shaved it with the fork. But you can use any type you want. You know, I usually don't like to say, you know, only that kind or only that kind, because it's, you know, when you're cooking, you need to be free and just enjoy it. And whatever you have at home works, you know. This is what I like to do. And so I'm just breaking it up. And I'm going to add the same quantity of mozzarella. And I'm using like the type of mozzarella that you would use on pizza, which is low moisture, because I don't want my dough to get like very soggy. I'm going to add the same quantity of mozzarella. There we go. And just mix both cheeses together. And the reason I'm mixing it in a bowl before putting it on the naan is because I want, you know, my manouche to have the same flavor everywhere. If you're putting like the mozzarella and then sprinkling it with feta, you're not going to get that like uniform flavor. So once you've mixed it like that, this is what you get. Then you're going to use your hands. You could use a spoon if you want, but I find it's more fun to use your hands. And just sprinkle it on top of the naan. And I'm going to be pretty generous with it. So I'm sprinkling it and, you know, patting it down. I'm going to make 2 naan with za'atar and 2 naan with cheese.
And Tara, you're talking about different cheeses that they use back home. What's the cheese that they usually use? Is it?
So they usually mix a cheese that melts a lot. So something like mozzarella, or our kind of a cheese that looks a bit like provolone, which they call fondel, which doesn't really exist outside of Lebanon. And they mix with it akawi, usually, which is the cheese that you find in the knafa, which is the, you know, Lebanese cheesecake. That's usually the cheeses that you find. But depending on the bakery where you're going, it's gonna change from bakery to bakery.
Got it.
So this is the cheese. And for the za'atar, so za'atar is basically a spice that's based on like dried thyme. The recipes vary, but the ones you get in the store have dried thyme, sumac, a bit of salt, and sesame seeds. So depending on the brand that you have, you might have more or less sesame seeds. Some companies even add a bit of dried oregano, and it's really, really good. It's acidic. It's you know, it's very earthy. It has a lot of earthy tones. And if you're doing 1 cup of za'atar, you want to add approximately half a cup of oil. And so I'm going to add my oil here.
Someone is asking, can lavash bread also be used instead of naan?
Yes, you can. So you can use, and somebody, they were asking about a recipe of dough that's vegan. If you go on my Instagram, I have a pizza dough that's vegan that you can make yourself. It takes only a couple of hours, you know, with the resting time, and it's ready. You can basically do that on anything you want. Sometimes I even do them on the atay. So you can do it on anything you like. What I like is that the naan really reminds me of the bakery in my town. It's very similar. They do a thicker type of manouche, which I really like. So I'm adding a bit more olive oil.
I think sometimes I use pizza dough from like the bakery down the street as well, the Italian bakery close to our place here. And it's a good substitute as well. I think, you know, the manouche is versatile. I talked about the thin and the thick and the different varieties. And fun fact, lavash is Armenian as well. It's an Armenian version of Lebanese bread, which is also where my family's from. We gave a small intro. There's a good, pretty large community of Armenians in Lebanon as well.
We should do an Armenian cooking class, Karine. Armenian food is like the best.
Anytime.
So you can see the za'atar, the consistency that you're looking for. And also, you know, don't be afraid to add more oil or less oil. This is really a personal taste, you know, personal taste and how, you know, intense you want the za'atar to be. I have something that I do that I think all Lebanese would disown me, but when I go to the bakery, I love the za'atar manouche with vegetables, which like I put like tomato and mint and olives inside. but I asked them to like remove the za'atar from it. So I like the flavor of the za'atar, but I don't like to have that much of it. So I asked them to like turn it and like tap it, which is crazy. I think people will like kill me when they find out. But yeah, that's what I do.
And this is like a quintessential also like Lebanese breakfast. Like Tara said, I think when I prepped it, I like cut up some like potatoes and cucumbers and olives to add on it as well, because it just adds so much flavor. Just like
I have some cherry tomatoes and some mint. I'll show you how to prepare it with it. And so here I'm just gonna put it in the oven. And you can see that I've spread, this is how it's supposed to look like before you put it in the oven. And if you're turning on the broiler, it'll just take like 3 or 4 minutes. I preheated my oven because my broiler doesn't work that much here. And I'm gonna put it for approximately 4 to 5 minutes. And I'll check on it every once in a while, and you'll see how it looks. So into the oven it goes. I'll cut up some vegetables and I'll show you. This is some labneh that I made yesterday. So you can see how thick it is. It's super creamy. I'm just put it in a plate, and the way we usually serve it is just with a bit of olive oil. And that's it. It's really easy. It's very, very simple.
and you can pair that with the manaish, right?
Yes. Sorry, I was just getting my cherry tomatoes and my mint to show you once it comes out of the oven. So I think it would be good if we maybe finish the atayif and then go back to the manouche. What do you prefer?
Perfect. How does everyone feel about it? Unless there's like...
So remember when I took the atayif out, they were super crispy. So now they're super soft. And you can fold them really easily. So I had made some before. And this is the traditional size that you'll find. So it's approximately as big as the palm of my hand. And this is the size that I like to make. That's kind of like the bite size, which is really nice if you have friends over and you know want to offer something that they can just pick up with their hand and don't need a fork for. I have here some ashta that I made yesterday too, which is basically the cheese. So once the liquid, you know, went down for like an hour or 2, you can even do it less. I mean, it's not that important that it stays that long. I'm gonna fill them. And it's really easy. I'll show you. You just take one and you want to pinch it on the sides like this. And then you'll take a spoon full of ashta, fill it. You know, we want to be very generous with the ashta, and then just pinch the edges like this.
Nice.
So I'm going to do a few that are like really small. Minis.
Are they, and like usually it's like almost bite size, right? Like almost 2 bites basically. It's not, it's,
yeah, you can have it like, I made one that's really small. This one is slightly bigger. What I like with the small ones is I can eat them in 1 bite and I don't end up, you know, dripping with syrup and stuff. See, I'll show you again. And I'll do a few. This is the regular size. And I love making it when friends come over because I can make it in advance. It's not very, you know, it's not very difficult to make. And they're really, really good. And it's very fresh for summer. So once it looks like this, you want to sprinkle them with your pistachios. So I have crushed pistachios here. And the last thing you want to do, and this is usually when you serve it, you want to serve it with the syrup on the side, which I'm going to drizzle now. I'll show you the consistency of the syrup. See? It's not very, very, very thick. It's thinner than, I would say it's a bit thinner than maple syrup. And then I'm just going to drizzle it on top.
Tara, Alexia is asking, how do the sides stick together when you pinch it?
Because you have to, this is something I didn't say. Basically, the part that's a bit colored has to be on the outside, and the part that is on the inside will automatically stick together, but you need to pinch it like really hard, like don't be gentle with it. You need to pinch it really, really, really hard, and it sticks together.
Got it. And you don't have cheese at that end, is that right?
No, basically I'm holding it. You can see here. It's basically as if you were holding, a bite, and this is why we pinch it on top. Now you have some pastries where you will find it kind of like a taco. So it won't be pinched. It would look kind of like this, which is like a taco if you find them like one next to the other. But what I don't like about that is that if you're not filling up a whole, tray, they're gonna end up opening up.
Yeah.
Which is not as practical. Okay, so this is recipe number 1 is done, the atayef, and I wish you could smell them. They are so good. I had, I think, 5 when I was prepping for this class, but they're so good.
Tara, I want to pause for a second, and I don't mean to be pushy on this for anyone on the call, but I know that we mentioned, the initial reason that we were doing this event was, to raise funds specifically for Lebanon, given all the catastrophes that it has undergone. I mean, we have countless stories, and I thought, if we could pause a little bit, I don't want to bring this mood down, but maybe I could talk a little bit about the 4 organizations that we picked for this event, given that we've raised already a good amount, and I feel like diasporan Lebanese is trying to do their part now, but I thought I would talk a little bit about the 4 different NGOs that we chose. It's become really important to support these specific NGOs because money that's going to the government isn't being distributed very well or even fairly. So we've picked 4 different NGOs for this event. And the main one that we chose was Beit el Baraka, but specifically because they're very focused on distributing food. And given that this is an event that promotes our culture and our cuisine, we just felt it was very fitting. And they're helping, repair damaged homes and providing medical coverage for any victim that's been hurt during the explosion. We also picked the Lebanese Red Cross because they were really the ones on the ground when everything started breaking out. They were, the emergency forces that were there supporting many of our friends and family and other fellow Lebanese during this time.
Karine, it's important to say that in Lebanon, we don't have paramedics or an ambulance system. So the Red Cross does everything that a paramedic would do, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for adding that too. And one thing that we saw continuously after all of this was a lot of blood shortage. So a lot of blood donation was very needed. And this is the second NGO called Donner Sans Compter that we also put in the links. And this is more of in face of crisis relief efforts, they're really the ones distributing, making sure that we're getting enough blood donations. And the last one is Offre Joie, and it's specifically cleaning up debris and focusing on home repair. Okay, I think I'm going to pause there on this, and please, if anyone has any questions about what's going on, about a little bit more on a personal account, we're happy to share. But I think we have something delicious that's coming out of the oven. And
yeah, we do. So you can see that the dough has bubbled, as if it's fresh dough, which is amazing. I love it. And the bottom is really like a manusha. You can even fold it in half. See? And it looks exactly like what you would get back home.
That's very, very good. If anyone's doing this at home, I'm sure your oven is smelling wonderful right now.
Yeah, I mean, I had lunch before this, and I think I'm gonna have lunch again after this.
And
you can fold it in half, like this.
Show us the cheese one up close.
Yes, show you the cheese one up close.
Okay, so it still has like curds. Like it still
Yes,
has...
it's normal. It's normal for it to have a bit. They'll melt once you like, you know, close it up together. And it also depends on like the brand that you got and the kind that you got. But you see here, it looks exactly like the one you get back home. And the texture, and I'm gonna try to show you like how the texture is like super smooth, because some people, you know, see naan in the store and they think that it's like a very tough dough, but when you heat it up actually, and especially with everything on top, it gets really, really smooth and really, really good. And I'll show you how to put the vegetables in it. So you can serve it opened or closed.
And the za'atar at least is vegan, right?
Yeah, so when it's opened, I'm just gonna add, I like to add cherry tomatoes. I think they look cute and they taste really sweet. So you can add cherry tomatoes like this. And you can add some mint leaves. Now, traditionally, the one that has vegetables is usually the za'atar one, but you can do it with both. And you can add cucumber, you can add olives, really whatever you like. And I like to serve it with a side of labneh, which is what you will have ready. So here you go. This is the one with vegetables.
Looks
and
awesome.
You can close it up again. You know, I used to, whenever I had like sports or a day where I will, you know, was going to be away from home for a long time, I would just make them in the morning and roll them like you would a sandwich, and just keep them in my backpack, and I would eat them when I would get hungry, and it's so, so good. Even, you know, when it cools down, the flavor is great, the texture is amazing, and with a side of labneh, you can't go wrong.
When we were little, I'll add this fun fact. Our parents used to always tell us that za'atar is good for the brain. So anytime we had an exam or something, they would make us eat either manaish or za'atar in the morning. I don't know if Tara, they did that at your house, but at ours, that was a big thing.
In our house, they would say, you know, whenever you were sick, they would say in Arabic, za'atar biftah al-ibliya, which means that like, you know, it'll give you back your appetite. So they would always say like, eat a bit of za'atar, you'll be hungry. Eat a bit of za'atar. And it's really like, the smell of it is so, it's fresh and earthy and like so savory, and it has a bit of, you know, acidity with it. It's really, really good. And I feel like we don't get sick of it. We could eat it every day of the week and we still, you know, we still want more.
Like I put za'atar in my salads. I put them in absolutely anything, just as a flavor. It's a great herb, I would say, like used very, like, again, with or without oil, with the amount that you want, with less amount.
It's really good with, you know, to put on avocado toast, on hard-boiled eggs. You could use, I also use it to like season my chicken breast. So I just put a bit on top of my chicken breast, and then I stick it in the oven. You could use it with salmon, with anything really. It tastes very, very good. You can put it with like watermelon and mozzarella. It's really good, and it's a very versatile spice that you can use with almost everything.
And we even have a recommendation from Alexia saying to do Lebanese breakfast taco with tortilla, with scrambled eggs and za'atar.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. I think I'll try it. That sounds good.
Awesome. I think we've kind of covered all the recipes. If there are any questions, shoot them our way. I think thus far we've raised about $1,447. Thank you to all of you, truly. I think we couldn't have done any of this without you and without everybody's support. There is one more question, not to ruin the scared moment with the manouche, but I'm wondering, do you feel hopeful for the future of Lebanon?
Do you want
this one?
Do you want me to answer and then you answer, or?
Go for it.
I hope that, you know, what happened 2 weeks ago is going to be a turning point. I think what was really nice for everyone to see is how unified the Lebanese people, you know, basically imagine you're in a country with no state. So people have had to take care of everything. They're offering their services to fix homes for free, to cook, you know, for people, to buy them the supplies they need. So I think there's a beautiful movement that has come out of this tragedy, and it's always the case, I think, with Lebanon. We always have, you know, polar opposites, like extreme devastation, and on the other side you have extreme kindness. And I think I was talking to you about it, Karine. I think that's why Lebanese people tend to be like very generous and very kind, and you know, they offer you stuff for free. Like a couple of weeks ago I was in LA, and there's a Lebanese pastry store that opened there, and they haven't opened up a storefront yet. And I had ordered a couple of things, and when I got there, he wouldn't let us pay. And when we opened the box, it had like kind of like the za'atar manouche, which is called it's called sfiha. It's like a meat pie that they make in the north of Lebanon, and some small atayef and stuff like that. And honestly, I started crying in the car, and I couldn't believe that just a stranger, you know, that I had never met in my life would do something like that. And he was like, no, you're my, you know, we come from the same country, of course, and I don't know what. And it was exactly as if your grandma had packed you like lunch, you know, if you're going to the beach or something. And I think that comes from maybe so many years of war where we've had to help each other because there was no one there to help. And so I really hope that this will be a turning point, because you have very smart, very capable, amazing people who are in the country and who are capable of, you know, leading the country in the right direction. But we just have to get rid of like really the corrupt and rotten political class that has been ruling for the past 30 years, who have gotten us into this mess, basically.
Yeah, you gave me goosebumps. But absolutely, I mean, we've seen the efforts on the ground by our friends that have been completely displaced, that are just going back at it. I know Tara's brother's been out there, my brother's been out there, like just cleaning up all this amount of glass. But I think this has definitely set us back. And, you know, there's been a hashtag going around that says just talk about Lebanon, because even the amount of information that's out there has reduced over the next couple of weeks, which is, you know, the nature of social media. So I think that's kind of, this was the effort that we were hoping, you know, and to do and promote even more, and allow us to talk a little bit about what happened and about a country that honestly it has really like incredible people. So it's just, we're hopeful, and you know, anything we can do, even as diasporan Lebanese, to support back home and to support our families, we're ready to do it. And we've seen that effort like across the world, truly, not only in Lebanon.
I think what's sad about it is that, you know, because of the reach, because of where Lebanon is on the planet, people tend to say, oh, there's been another explosion in the Middle East. And I think the region has so many wars and so much going on that people think that, oh, okay, it's just another explosion, it's, you know, fine. But what happened in Lebanon this time is the third biggest explosion ever. And it's the first big explosion since 1945. So it's like since I was born, I think since you were born, Karine, even since my parents were born, there hasn't been such a big explosion. And I think it's sad to see it just wiped out of media just because of where it had happened. Because had it happened like in New York or in London, we wouldn't have a Manhattan anymore, and you wouldn't have a London anymore. And so that's how big it was. And I think the cultural heritage that exists in Lebanon, I mean, you're talking about homes that are hundreds of years old, that are older than America, that were destroyed. And you cannot bring that back. You know, it's a heritage that was gone forever. And for me, I mean, it's hard not to cry while talking about it, but it's, you know, these people suffered the biggest explosion in modern times when they didn't know they were in danger. Lebanon was not at war with anyone at the moment. Everyone thought they were safe. And the region where it happened is a region where there's never been conflict after the Civil War. So it's not, you know, on the borders with whichever countries we have. It's not a region that is like in the middle of nowhere, you know, it's the heart and soul of Lebanon. It's the heart of the capital. If anyone who has visited Lebanon has visited these places. You've been, I mean, I had people over last year for my wedding, and they were asking me like, where did it happen? And I said, well, it happened where we went clubbing. It happened where we went to the restaurant. It happened where you went to your yoga class. So basically everything we know has been wiped out. And I mean, until now, for me, I still can't believe it. And I wake up in the middle of the night and I feel like it's not true. But I think it's something so devastating that will take decades to go back to the way it was. And it happened to a country that was already on the brink of, you know, not existing because of the corruption and the financial crisis that had been looming for the past 12 months.
Yeah. No, I think that helps frame everything and you know, and really explains the real sadness that is there. And you know, and I think, you know, to wrap this up before I hand it off to Simran for the last 5 minutes, I think food is a way we share our warmth, our love, our culture, flavors, the smells, everything comes through. So we hope that you try to make these at home. If you haven't followed us already, I know I'm waiting to put my menaish in the oven and to have my labneh in the morning. But Tara, you've been an incredible chef to follow throughout the years, and it's just been so much fun to do this with you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And this is actually my first anything that has to do, you know, with work or with being back since the explosion. And so I'm sorry if I was a bit like nervous in the beginning, but it's a very emotional, you know, cause for all of us. And so it was, you know, very, very emotional. And especially when you're sharing something as, I think food is a very intimate thing to share with people. And especially food that, you know, that you grew up eating that's from back home, you know, touches that like sensitive spot. And so, yeah, thank you for having me.
No, thank you. And thank you, Canopy. You guys have been such supporters from day one.
Yeah, no, thank you, Karine and Tara. That was so wonderful, and it was so nice to hear stories and having us come together around a table. You know, we're around a Zoom table right now, and that is, you know, as you were saying, that is how people come together and share their stories.
We can't hear you, Simran.
Sorry about that. Now you can hear me. So I was saying, thank you so much, Karine and Tara, for being here. And it was really wonderful hearing your stories and bringing everyone together around a table, and sharing the amazing culture that you have and what's going on and how everybody can help out. And also, I think it seems, you know, from the chat, like the audience loved it. They loved you, Karine and Tara. So thank you. And it was also really great that we managed to raise quite a bit of money for this.
Yay, everyone.
All right, well, we're gonna end it for today. This has been recorded. It's on Facebook. It's on our Facebook channel, and it'll go on YouTube, so you can always see this. And, you know, as far as other events, you just follow our newsletters. We have so many different things, and this is probably, you know, one of the most fun ones. It's like having a cooking show on here. That's for a good cause. All right, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.